This week, Iranian-backed militant groups launched deadly drone strikes towards a US military base on the Jordan-Syrian and Iraq border. The drones hit the base known as Tower 22, killing 3 service members and injuring over 30 others. This was the first known confirmed fatality of members of the US military in the Middle East since the Israel-Hamas war began on October 7 last year. President Joe Biden has warned the Iranian terrorist groups that the United States will respond at a time and place of their choosing. However, despite Joe Biden's warning, both the White House and the Pentagon have urged the US doesn't want a war with Iran.
We are not looking for a war with Iran. We are not seeking a conflict with the regime in a military way. And as I said in the opening, we're not looking to escalate here. This attack over the weekend was escalatory. Make no mistake about it. And it requires a response. Make no mistake about that. I will not get ahead of the president's decision making.
Certainly, as we've said before here in this briefing room, Iran continues to arm and equip these groups to launch these attacks. But we certainly don't seek a war. And frankly, we don't see Iran wanting to seek a war with the United States.
Now, before we jump in, if you do like this kind of content, please like and subscribe to our TalkTV YouTube page. Joining me now to discuss the latest on this is former British Colonel Hamish to Breton-Gordon. Hamish, thank you so much for your time today. Now, 3 US soldiers dead at the hands of Iran's terror groups. How and what retaliation will Joe Biden do?
Well, this is a really serious escalation. As you say, the first 3 US service personnel to be killed since 7th of October. However, there have been 170 other attacks by Iranian proxies and Iranian militias against US bases in Syria, Jordan, and Iraq. And it's very important, I'm sure, that President Biden is thinking how he must react to this. He absolutely must react to it. But what he doesn't want to do is make things worse. I think he's really got 3 options. To attack some of the leadership of some of these groups, and they're all run by the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. The previous commander, Qasem Soleimani, was killed by an American precision strike back in 2020, and that really had the impact then that the Americans want. So I expect if they can take out some key leadership and also take out some of the launch sites of these drones, then that will be the ideal option. What America doesn't want to do, which would be the next progression, is potentially take out some Iranian military ships in either the Persian Gulf or the Red Sea, or to attack Iranian bases in mainland Iran. But Biden and the US administration will be looking at it very, very carefully. The last thing they want and we want is for Iran to go nuclear. We know only last week, intelligence saying that they have enough enriched uranium for about 12 nuclear missiles. So it's a very challenging area, but I expect they'll try and limit it to some precision strikes, take out key leadership of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards, and perhaps some launch sites as well.
Hamish, it's speculated that the US actually failed to stop this drone attack because militants thought that this was their own drone approaching. Is this a correct statement?
Well, it's certainly a plausible statement. We've really got very used to, in the last couple of years in Ukraine and also in the Middle East, the plethora of drones, thousands and thousands of drones. When I was the Peshmerga's chemical weapons advisor 4 or 5 years ago, when we were fighting ISIS, the terror group, they had a few drones, but they were pretty few and far between. Now there are thousands of these things around. No doubt the US was launching a lot of drones from Tower 22 on surveillance missions, and it seems possible that actually their defensive aid suites of that US base were maybe turned down to allow recovery of their own drones. And let's hope it was just pure luck that the Islamic militias fired drones or attacked drones at that time. Because obviously if they found a way around US defenses, that would be hugely significant. But as I've said, they've had hundreds of these attacks thus far. The US has managed to repel them all. except for this one. And sadly, in warfare, sometimes disasters like this do happen, which is why the US and President Biden must react in some demonstrative fashion, but without setting the Middle East on more fire than it is at the moment.
Hamish, Iran says it had nothing to do with the drone attack. How likely is that claim?
Well, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's bonkers. Everybody knows that Iran is the axis of evil. Iran is training, financing, and giving weaponry to the terror group Hamas, terror group Hezbollah, to the terror group the Houthis attacking British ships in the Red Sea. Yeah, I don't think anybody believes that Iran is not behind this. The Islamic militias, Islamic revolutionaries in Iraq, as they're called, are controlled directly by the Islamic Revolutionary Guards, who are based in Tehran and around Iran. So, yeah, no, that's a ridiculous statement. And I think anybody who knows anything about this conflict and anything about Iran knows that it's complete fabrication and lies.
Just getting back onto what you said before, Hamish, and my final question about Joe Biden and having to face up to Iran. Do you think that the United States is strong enough right now in the face of Iran? You know, as you just mentioned, they are becoming the puppet master of all things evil currently in the world. There was a famous quote from the former Defence Secretary Robert Gates from 2014 that resurfaced again, saying that Joe Biden had been wrong on nearly every major foreign policy and national security decision that he made in the past 4 decades. Do you agree? Does Biden need to be stepping up more in the face of this?
Well, first of all, does the US have the military might to be able to take on Iran? Yeah, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. But there are so many unintended consequences that could come from being overzealous in this particular case. Not least, of course, Putin is like some sort of silent great white shark circling around, pouring as much fuel on the Middle Eastern fire as he can to deflect from his war crimes in Ukraine. Trump only yesterday, the potential next president of the US, has said that we're very close to World War III, but don't worry, once he gets in power, potentially in January next year, he'll sort it out. So he obviously thinks that World War III isn't going to start for a few months, but it is absolutely clear that tyrants like Iran and like Putin only respect strength. If they see weakness, they exploit it. So it's key that Biden is strong here. The US military have the firepower and the wherewithal to deal with this. But they need to be circumspect and careful. Ultimately, everybody wants peace in the Middle East. There are some potentially productive peace talks going on with the Qataris, with the US, the Israelis, and the Palestinians. And everybody would like to see that be successful. But ultimately, there is a massive world order at stake here. And the US must show that it is the biggest dog in this fight. Otherwise, things could go badly wrong in the Middle East, badly wrong in Europe, which could create the so-called World War III that Trump is suggesting.
Hamish, Breton-Gordon, thank you so much for your time today.
Pleasure.